I feel like I could decide your fate right now. Send him to the glacier. I'm so glad that you found your way to the winter courts. I hope the snows didn't hold you up. We did it. Please enjoy some hot cocoa and an ice bath on the house. Welcome to my ultimate winter book recommendations video. I am sweating in my ermine and it's fake, and I'm here to tell you about every single book that I've ever read that has to do with winter. I wanted to do a sister video to my autumn book recs, and that's how I did it. I'm recommending you every single book that I've ever read that has to do with winter. The list is actually shorter than you would guess. I've split this into different thematic sections that just check out in my heart, but honestly, these are books that are all perfect for December, January, or whatever month you experience the cold in. Please sit down, take a seat, get warm by the fire before my palace freezes ye old bones. Can I dress like this 24/7? This is my final form. There's actually books on here that I've never talked about ever on my channel because I went back years ago, over 10 years ago, to get some of these. So our first category is winter is coming. Prepare your stores, gather the harvest, the gale is upon us. These are books very reminiscent of House Stark's motto, because these are books where winter is very much, or can be, something you have to fight against, something that you are trying to survive, something that's not like, oh, we're going ice skating, we're having fun frolicking in the snow. No, it's winter as a destructive force, winter as some kind of villain, and winter as the harbinger of death. That's what winter really is. Death. First book on here is The Sight. We're set in this world where animals speak. This is all set from the wolves' point of view. We follow a pack of wolves who are living in the dead of winter in Transylvania, and it is very much about their survival. However, as is often the case in David Clement Davies' works, these are middle grade, by the way, but they read pretty mature. I don't know, it's been 10 years since I read it, but that's was my feeling as a kid, because I read this as a kid. There are prophecies surrounding these wolves, and there is this evil wolf named Morgra who is trying to get this prophecy to come to pass. So you follow these wolves trying to survive, trying to stick and band together and wait out the harsh winter. Very atmospheric if you want to follow a pack of wolves and their family and their comings and goings. Next, we have another one that isn't so much about survival, but the whole planet is ice. This is about an ice planet, and winter has come to this planet for sure, because this is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I get a lot of people always telling me like, hey, you should read The Left Hand of Darkness, and I'm like, hey, I read this years ago. This was actually for a class at university I took on science fiction. The Left Hand of Darkness was on the syllabus. I need to reread it because at the time I was swamped with work and didn't get into the story as much as I feel like I could. Regardless, this is about someone who is sent to this planet, completely ice, completely winter. The planet is actually called Winter, and on this planet live beings, and they can actually decide I don't know if it's at any point. I feel like it was at any point that they want to be a man or to be a woman, and they can change at will. So cool. So cool. And of course the atmosphere and the cold and the dark. If you want an icy sci-fi, The Left Hand of Darkness. If you want a snowstorm, the feeling that something is piling up and amalgamating into this force that is gonna trap you, close you in, keep you somewhere, you're snowbound essentially, and you're kind of getting worried about that, I would recommend Snow. These make my fingers, first of all, these make my fingers kind of look like confectionery sausages, and also much longer than they are because my finger stops like here. That is Snow by Orhan Pamuk. I read this a long time ago. This book is so cool. This is about an exiled poet who returns to Turkey, I think from Germany is where he's been living, and he goes to the border city of Kars. His purpose is to report on a wave of suicides among religious girls forbidden to wear their headscarves, but he's also drawn to his memories of the radiant Ipak, now recently divorced. Among everything that is going on, there is snow. We have a snowstorm threatening the whole entire city. Okay, I can't wear these anymore. Okay, that felt cool. I love the feeling of like taking off gloves and be like, there is also a hotel in this book called the Snow Palace Hotel. We have something similar but in a much more uplifting fashion, and that is Moominland Midwinter by Janssen. This book is a big comfort. This is about the Moomins, who are these little creatures. If you've never met them, go meet them. Every winter they hibernate. They are hibernating creatures, except this one winter, for whatever reason, one of the Moomins wakes up. So it's him experiencing winter for the first time because he's never seen it before. And at first he's like so frightened. This book it's terrifying, the things that go on for him, because he's like, where's my world? Where's the sun? Where's the grass? What is this stuff? It's just so, it's really truly profound, honestly. Like, this book is gorgeous. He meets all of the people who inhabit the winter landscape. The valley looked as strange as a moonscape. The drifts were enormous, rounded heaps or beautifully curved ridges with edges sharp as knives. Every single twig in the wood carried a large snow cap. The trees looked most of all like big pastry cakes made by a very fanciful confectioner. I think it really lets you kind of appreciate and become accommodated to winter if you are a winter hater. It's a hard season. It's a hard season, and Moominland Midwinter like just takes you through it. Another story of survival where winter is definitely not a friend and is cursed for arriving is Heaven and Hell by Jan Kelman Stephenson. This is set in Iceland in the 1800s, and we follow, in the beginning of this book at least, a group of men who are out fishing on the ocean for cod. This is their job. It is so dangerous. It is like the OG deadliest catch, and you follow this young boy who's just joined the squad going out fishing for cod, and he makes a friend of one of the older men in the group named Bartur, if I'm saying that right. And these two men are very different from everyone around them. They really value poetry. They do not have the practical mindset that the men around them possess. They are ridiculed for their love of language and letters. They're both obsessed with Paradise Lost. And this is a tragedy. Like, it's very sad. Life is so honestly tough, and the winter just makes it so much more hellish for them because they're out there in the middle of blizzards on the ocean trying to get fish. The writing style in this is just so gorgeous, so suited to the story. It's so lyrical, it's so beautiful, and it's written so interestingly. The narrator is, I'm not gonna say who the narrator is, but it's gorgeous. I underlined so many quotes. When it becomes calm and we can go outside without dying, the streets are covered with seaweed as if the sea had sneezed over us. The last one I want to put in this category is a little bit different. It's a middle grade. It is a story of survival. It is set in the winter, among other seasons, but mostly the winter atmosphere is out of this world. But it's a bit of a different one. It is The Dollmaker of Krakow by, who's this by? R.M. Romero. This is one of the best middle grade I've ever read. The cover is stunning, and this is also a little bit like, it has some Nutcracker vibes as well, honestly. It's set in Poland during World War II, and we follow this man who is a toy maker. His family is German, but he's living in Poland, and so he's not one of the people who are on the Nazis list to take away. However, one day he wakes up in his toy shop and there is this doll in his shop who has come to life. Her name is Katarina, and she's like, I am from the land of the dolls. They strike up a friendship, and they are trying to help people in their community because they do live in a Jewish community. Hide these people, take care of them. They make a lot of friendships. This middle grade, I will warn you, like, it is hard hitting. It does not shy away from any of the horrors of the war. The next category that I have is called Mountains and Glaciers. Oh my. This is anything that has to do with glacial structures, ice structures, snow, winter, ice, as one of the main characters, one of the featuring oomph of the novel. Do you know what I mean? The first one is interesting, and I had kind of forgotten all about this book until I saw it on my Goodreads. But if you have forgotten about it too, may I recommend to you and remind you that The Slippery Slope by Lemony Snicket exists. This is the 10th book in the series of unfortunate events. This was actually the book that I stopped at, and so I've never finished the series. This is the one where the three orphans, Violet, Sunny, and Klaus, are on a slippery slope. Set during winter, there are things like crazy toboggan rides. I don't know, they're all trying to run away from the evil Count Olaf, who wants to steal their tremendous fortune. The orphans fortune because their parents are dead, and in this one they are trying to escape from him in this like extremely snowy glacial environment. This was in my autumn video. I think this is the only crossover, but a lot of people think this is like a very gothic classic, and it absolutely is, but I think, myself included, I forget the amount of snow and glacier and ice as a force in this book to be reckoned with. I think I forget that those elements exist because there's so many other crazy things going on in this book. If you know what I'm talking about, it's Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Incredible. I mean, the book starts off with the box narrative of the captain of the ship who is going on the polar expedition, which parallels Victor's journey, foolishly trying to conquer nature. We have, I forget what his name is. What's the name of the captain who starts off Frankenstein? Again, Mary Shelley is like starting the book off with commentary on man trying to dive into the secrets of nature and be better or conquer nature in some fashion. And of course, Victor does come to be a passenger on, I think his name starts with like an S or something. Clark? Watson? Wallace? Walton? Walton? I would bet you money right now that it's Wallace. Walton. Captain Robert Walton. Yeah, so they're heading towards the North Pole and their ship gets trapped between sheets of ice, and that's where they pick up Victor because his creation has fled to the North Pole as well. So not only that, but the parts where the scenes in Frankenstein where Victor is chasing his creation up into the mountains and across glacial structures, they're doing it up there in the snow, in the crazy elements. Like, that's where the chase scene takes place. That's where the creature seeks refuge, is up in the ices, because he knows that man can't follow him there. And so much of Frankenstein is actually like, I kind of want to write on it in like the view of the Little Ice Age, because that's when Mary Shelley was writing. A lot of the inspiration, I think, for the like ice and glacier scenes and so much of the atmosphere, like the natural world in Frankenstein, is inspired and lends itself to the fact that Mary Shelley was writing during the Little Ice Age, during one of the coldest summers I think ever recorded. There was ash blocking out the sky, volcanic ash from this huge eruption that had happened in 1816, which was when I think Byron had his little rendezvous with Percy and Mary, and that's where she dreamed up the idea of Frankenstein. So much of Frankenstein owes itself to the Little Ice Age. Plus there's that gorgeous quote, which is like, oh, what is that quote? Oh, be men or be more than men. This ice is not made of such stuff as your hearts may be. It is mutable. Next book that I want to recommend with tons of glacial structures that are again a little bit frightening is The Ice Palace by Tarja Vesaas. This is a Norwegian writer. Such a cool, honestly freaky little story. It's pretty short. It's a short novel, I guess, about these two girls who are like weird mirror images a little bit of the other. They meet in school. One of them is a loner, one is much more popular, and they develop this friendship, sisterhood. It gets so strange, it gets so weird, but the whole novel revolves around this structure called the Ice Palace, which has been created from this frozen waterfall. All the kids at school are obsessed with it, and one of these girls is a little bit too obsessed with it. Descriptions in this book are really to die for, so highly recommend The Ice Palace. Ice Fields. This wins best in the category. Best nominee for me, okay, is Ice Fields. I've talked about this to absolute death. I'm just gonna say it one more time. Read this, go do it. This is set in the Canadian Rockies. It follows a bunch of people who return again and again in the summer to the Athabasca Glacier in this book, and it is so gorgeous. This is one of my favorite books of all time, so that is Ice Fields. I have recommendations for your books, and I also have recommendations for your phone. Big thank you to Berga for sponsoring this one. Berga's phone cases are so gorgeous in fact that even Taylor Swift uses them on her phone. Phone cases are also trending on TikTok. They have so many different options, but one of the great things about Berga is that their cases are made on demand, so they're not creating a bunch of excess waste with a ton of new designs. They don't actually start manufacturing the case until you've ordered one. Actually, I already had a Burga phone case on my phone that I bought myself a few months ago, but I'm gonna switch them out. They sent me over 4 of their cases. First up, I wanted to give you an honest review of the 2 that I got. These are the Tough cases. I got this really cute like mermaid case is what this reminds me of. It's kind of like pink bubble gum. Their Tough cases have a dual layer, so they have a silicone interior and that hard shell exterior. They also have a raised bezel for screen and camera protection. The other Tough case that I got is this really cute cat case with like black cats all over it. This was part of their like Halloween fall autumnal release. I think it's so perfect to go with it. I also got one of their phone rings. So this one I got in gold with the same black cat on it. Burga also gifted me 2 of their Elite cases. I think these ones are my favorite because I love the added gold around the camera. I just think it looks so cute. Their Elite cases, on the other hand, have cutting edge cloud guard technology, which absorbs up to 90% of impact. The interior is so soft because it's actually made of microfiber lining. For the Elite ones, I first got this really cute green plaid. It's kind of reminding me like, first of all, Christmas and winter. I don't have a lot of plaid things in my life, so this one was a good choice. And then this one is my favorite, and this is the one that is on my phone right now because this is probably the one I'm going to use all winter long. I had to get one with snowflakes and stars on it. I love the blue color. The other thing that it's time to switch out is my laptop case. Now I've switched over again to a plaid. This one just seems very autumnal, but also for the winter I thought it gave a little bit of like a gingerbread look to my laptop, which I really like, and this one also adds some extra protection. If you guys are looking for gifts for your loved ones this holiday season or for yourself as well, Burga is currently having a Black Friday sale between November 19th and December 3rd, which includes 25% off of everything on their site. You can also buy 4 Burga phone cases and only pay for 2, and you can also get 5% off on top of everything with my code EmmaXBF. The day grows dark, my friends. Next category I have for you is Ice Magic. These are books that feel like shreds of gossamer. These are books that feel like when Lucy steps through the wardrobe into Narnia for the first time and she sees everything in the woods, in the winter woods. These are like pure magic, so sparkly. These books are sparkly. The first book I have to recommend to you is Entwined by Heather Dixon. This is one of my favorite YA books ever. I am obsessed with this. This is a retelling of The 12 Dancing Princesses. In this version, the 12 princesses and the main eldest daughter that you follow, whose name is Azalea, they step every night to do like dance and ballet in this winter world that is gorgeous. It's like a winter garden. There's a pavilion that is just gorgeous. The descriptions in here are beautiful. The villain in here is a bit reminiscent of like The Other Mother in Coraline is what I want to say. I just really love this. I love this so much. So cool. So magical. The next one I have to recommend to you is Shiver. This is like winter magic because the seasons and the cold change the way that the werewolves in this book exist. Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater is a YA like romance, a supernatural romance. It's actually so good. Our best work that is reserved for the Raven Boys in my opinion, but this one holds a very nostalgic place in my heart because this is about Sam and Grace and their like love story. He's a werewolf, but it's like so raw and visceral. There's also a lot about like hunting in this book because she lives in a small town where I don't know what state, but it's basically a town of hunters. I actually got this for Christmas in 2010. Thank you to my aunt and uncle for this one. I love that the font is blue. That's so iconic. They're just so melancholic. They're 2 very dramatic, melancholic characters, and I love Maggie Stiefvater endlessly. Okay, the next one is a classic middle grade I had to put on here, and that is The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. He somehow decided to do a retelling, a little bit like a book that has so much inspiration from Paradise Lost for kids. And it's so cool. This follows Lyra, who lives in Oxford, and I think it's her uncle, right? Who is an explorer in the Arctic, talking polar bears, demons, because she also has this familiar demon. I love this. I need to reread it, and I need to continue on with the series. Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this brief. In the Clouds by Kirsten Gear. I love this book with my whole entire heart. I cannot wait to read it. This is set in the Swiss Alps. This is about a maid who, like, she's dropped out of high school, she doesn't really want to go to university, and she's decided that she wants to go work at a hotel. Me too, me too. Seriously, one of my life's dreams is to work at a hotel, and I want to make it happen. I seriously do. I've always wanted to work at a hotel. I don't want to own my own hotel. That's not the dream I'm talking about. I just want to work at like a grand hotel. And the Castle on the Clouds is the hotel in here. It's pretty grand. It's so cool. The reason why this one falls into ice magic is because there are dashes of the fantastical in what appears to be a very like grounded contemporary story. There's romance, there's cats, there's maybe spirits. This one is infused with Christmas magic. This one is set during a couple days before Christmas, and then into the new year. It's really about all of the old myths of ringing the new year in. Next one I didn't actually enjoy, which is rare. This is one of the only books on this whole entire video I think that I didn't enjoy, and that is Midnight in Everwood by M.A. Kuzniar. Ooh. This is a retelling of the Nutcracker, but I thought it was really overwritten. It was the writing that did this one in for me. I don't think it's very good. It's really overwrought. The description is obnoxious in my opinion, but I know a lot of people would probably be okay with it, so I wanted to put it on here anyway. This is about what is her name in this one? Marietta. She wants to be a ballerina, but again, she's from a family where that's considered below her station, I think. Her family wants her to marry and take up her place in society. But when a mysterious doll maker, Dr. Drosselmeyer, purchases a neighboring townhouse, he brings magic into her life. The Nutcracker retelling is The Enchanted Sonata, again by Heather Dixon. Heather Dixon, I love you. Heather Dixon, please come back to writing fiction. I need you. If you're watching this video, I need you. I think she works at Disney now, but which is great for her. Kudos to her, but I want her to come back because this actually, like, we follow Clara, and she is a pianist. She's about to play in the biggest competition of her life. However, on the same night, she notices a nutcracker beneath her tree. Lo and behold, she gets swept into the world of the Nutcracker. However, there's also so many elements of the Phantom of the Opera in here because the way that Heather like spins it is just so beautiful. It combines such gothic, horrifying elements of the Pied Piper. I loved Barbie and the Nutcracker as a kid, and this just really reminded me of that. This is what I would wear in Barbie and the Nutcracker. Last two books on this category, Icy Magic. We have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I thought this was going to be a perfect book for the spring. It's not. It's actually a perfect book for the winter. I read this last winter because this is about Emily, who's a very reclusive academic. However, she is on a little field trip, little field work time to this magical island. It's not really magical. It's kind of just Iceland, but on this island there be fairies. So in this world, fae just exist, and we have people who study them. This is also very, very, very good, honestly, academic rivalry between Emily and her colleague Wendell, and lo and behold, he also shows up on this island where she is just trying to get some goddamn work done. It's so beautiful. There's so many scenes of winter. It was such stark country. Every detail, from the jumble of brightly painted cottages to the vivid greenery of the coast to the glaciers lurking on the peaks, was so sharp and solitary, like embroidered threads, that I suspect I could have counted the ravens in their mountain burrows. Cannot wait to read the second one. I love Heather Fawcett. And then the last book on this list is actually Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, because okay, you forget it while you're reading it because it's not incorporated well. Like, for me, this was just a silly, fun time, if not a little bit aggravating and irritating because I wanted it to be better. But Once Upon a Broken Heart is actually set in this location called the Magnificent North. It doesn't do a good job of letting you know, in my opinion, but we are set in the Magnificent North. This is about this girl, what is her name? Evangeline. Evangeline, the love of her life, is about to marry another person. She gets really upset and she prays to the Prince of Hearts to stop the wedding, and she does eventually get shipped off to the North Kingdom. The next category is seasonal depression. These are the books about winter that are not happy. They're sad, and they feel like those long winter nights where you're just so depressed and you're like, where has the sun gone? Funnily enough, almost every single book on this list is a piece of classic literature. Number one is Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton. I mentioned this recently, all set during the winter. Do you like tobogganing? You thought you liked tobogganing. Number 2, The Dead by James Joyce. This is actually set at a New Year's party. So beautiful. I had to read this for uni. This appears in his collection called Dubliners, and The Dead is about the story mostly of a husband and a wife. Gaslight, but not that kind of gaslight, actually like beautiful descriptions of like gaslight. Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. You like trains? Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. This is set in one of the snowiest places on Earth, and we follow this man from Tokyo. He's left his family behind, and he's going up to the snow resort to see his girl, who's not really actually his girl. It's not a fun time. Next up, we have Daisy Miller by Henry James. This one is actually beautiful. This one is about Daisy, who represents the new money, the new America, because this is set at a time when class differences were clashing between the old money European and the new money American. She is in Europe, like doing her little tour, and she meets this man named Winterbourne. Okay, her name is Daisy. His name is Winterbourne. She was a boy, he was a girl. Could not make it any more obvious. She's actually staying at a hotel in Switzerland. Next classic, Yevgeny Onegin by Pushkin. This is all written in verse. So beautiful. I read this last year. Tragedy. So much tragedy. Tragedy is just so much better when there's snow around. And the 2 books on here for seasonal depression that aren't classics. The first one is... Wait. Dove. Am I dumb? Guys, how did I lose this book? It's Winter in Sokcho. This is about a young woman who lives in her family's inn in Sokcho, which in the summer is a bustling like beach town where a lot of tourists come. In the winter, it's dead. It's dead. However, there is one guest who is a Frenchman who is a graphic design illustrator. He's writing books and he wants her to be his tour guide around Sokcho. Really unique, honestly. Last one on here for office depression is The Thing in the Snow. If you like very meticulous books, this is really interesting. This is about a group of people who are all confined in one office. They can't go outside because where they are working, I don't think it's ever really specified. I think it's somewhere in the Arctic. They are like just supposed to be monitoring the building because the scientists who live there have all vacated the building for some reason. So these people are kind of like the custodial staff. So not only are they cleaning, but they are like counting chairs, measuring the temperature in each room, stuff like that. But they can't step outside because the minute they step outside, they will die because it's so cold. But one day they see something in the snow outside. This is like snow sickness. This is like going insane. This book is seasonal depression. The next category I have for you is The King in the North. Okay, you're done. You're done. First pick on here, Game of Thrones. It is A Song of Ice and Fire. This category is all about fantasy. This is all fantasy set in the winter or having something to do with the cold. Winterfell, you know, obviously it's on here. Love Song of Ice and Fire. Next one is called Frostblood by Ellie Blake. This is set in a fantasy world where people either have ice powers or fire powers and they don't like each other. This is it's honestly a very basic young adult tropey stereotypy fantasy, but I think I liked it. I really liked it. I think she did it well. This follows Ruby, who is a fireblood, and at the time when this is set, there is this evil frost king who is ruling over the land, and he is rounding up all of the firebloods to like duke it out in his coliseum. Okay, he's going full Commodus. He wants to be a gladiator. The next book in this category is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Because of Valaris. You know I had to put this on here because of Valaris, which is the kingdom of the Night Court. You know the amount of ambiance videos there are centered around Valaris. Valaris is basically just the Canadian Rockies. In my mind, it is just the Canadian Rockies. It is this gorgeous place with like markets and stars everywhere. You can see the galaxy above you. There's mountains. That is why A Court of Mist and Fury gets put onto this list, simply for the Night Court, which is honestly really beautiful. The next fantasy for you is For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. As the only second daughter born in centuries, Red has one purpose: to be sacrificed to the wolf in the wilder wood in the hope he'll return the world's captured gods. So when 2 daughters are born, there's 2 and you're like the younger, you're the spare, and you have to be sacrificed to the wood because this world has been missing its gods for a long time, which are said to be trapped in the snowy forest. This book has really malignant trees. The trees in this book are like the angels from Doctor Who. Kind of really spooky, kind of really spooky. I don't think this was the strongest. This could have been edited. Okay, let's be real. This could have been edited a lot. This was not the strongest fantasy I've ever read in my life, but I will still recommend it for the winter vibes in the woods. And of course, like when Red is sacrificed to the wolf, obviously this is a riff on Little Red Riding Hood. He's not what everyone has said he is. My absolute favorites on this video is, is Ember and the Ice Dragons, again by Heather Fawcett. Heather Fawcett, she's just like me. I want to meet her. She is one of my favorite Canadian authors. I just love her. Emily Wilde, Set in the Snow. Ember and the Ice Dragons, a middle grade set in Antarctica about the reach of Great Britain and what it would have looked like if there was a prince, a British prince of Antarctica who ruled over the ice dragons and poached them into almost non-existence. She also has another book called Even the Darkest Stars, which again is about snow and mountains. Like, it's my idol. This is so good. This is about Ember, who is again, she's actually a dragon. She is actually a dragon in child form. She has been rescued, she's been adopted, she lives on a university campus with her adoptive father until she accidentally like starts setting things on fire. So she's like, I'm gonna exile myself to Antarctica and maybe go find where the rest of the dragons are. I'm overheating, and that is kind of perfect because the next category is Gather Round the Flame. Oh, that was so dramatic. I love being dramatic. These are stories that I think you should tell around the fireplace in winter when it gets cold and when you're snowed in. It's kind of those books and novels that I wish if I was a little wee lass in the Scottish Highlands in the Victorian period, that my grandmother would sit me down around the fire with a little bowl of soup as the wind batters our door. This book on here is actually one I have not had the chance to talk about in a while. I should mention that I made this category with the idea that a lot of these stories gathered around the flame were based on fables, myths, and fairy tales, because that's a lot of what would be told around the fire, I'm assuming. So the first book is Tinder by Sally Gardner. This is a really impressive work. I actually heard about this book on Tumblr years ago. I read it a long time ago. This whole thing is illustrated with some of the coolest illustrations. I forget who illustrated this. Drawings by David Roberts. This is really good. This is a retelling of The Tinderbox by Hans Christian Andersen. Wow, 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 wow. Like, I love the illustrations, and then the ones on here that have color are just so striking. So what Sally Gardner has done, because it's honestly a masterpiece, is set the story of the Tinderbox in the 30 Years' War. And we follow this young boy named Otto. He is a child soldier. This tells the story of Otto, who gains control of the Tinderbox and can therefore summon the wolves. He defies death and finds himself on a journey to a realm of dark magic and mystery. Next on here, a lot of people think I haven't read this. I have read it, it's just that I didn't like it as much as I wanted to, and that is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I'm so sad that I didn't like this as much as I wanted to. This is a really cool book set in, I don't know what year, good long time ago in Russia, and this follows this young girl who can see the household spirits of her home, like all the old spirits, the hearth that everyone has forgotten. I think it's time for a reread for me. Honestly. Next in Gather Around the Flame is A Little Princess. This one is not really having to do with fairy tales or anything like that, but it kind of is, because Sarah in A Little Princess gathers, whose name means princess, doesn't it? Gathers so much strength from stories and fairy tales and believing that she is a princess after her father dies abroad and she loses her fortune, and she has to live in this attic in the dead of winter and kind of just survive, and everyone hates her. The next in Gather Around the Flame has to be The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This has a lot of different fairy tale elements, really beautiful and also quite like heavy. It's a very heavy book, honestly. The last 3 on here, I put The Blue Fox on here by Sion. It is an Icelandic fable about a man who is hunting this blue fox. It's very short, set in the winter. It's about him kind of being bested by this fox. And the last 2, first up we have A Wolf for a Spell by Kara Sutton. This is a retelling, middle grade retelling about Baba Yaga, but mostly we follow this young wolf, and it's about her trying to save her pack from the people who would do them harm. And then finally we have Snow and Rose by Emily Winfield Martin. This is a retelling of Snow White and Rose Red. Again, the illustrations in here are just something else, like so whimsical. This is about 2 sisters and their father goes missing in the forest. Yeah, some of my favorite illustrations, honestly. Very fairy tale. I had to save this category for last. It's also the shortest category on here, but it is just plain old Yule. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory, but if you celebrate Christmas and you want some Christmas books in your life, the first one is of course A Christmas Carol. It would be treason not to mention this. If you don't want to read A Christmas Carol, you want something that's a little bit different but like very similar, I would recommend you check out Mr. Dickens and His Carol. This is historical fiction about Charles Dickens. Not so much emphasis on the historical, a lot more emphasis on the fiction. Okay, I personally didn't really jive with this one. It takes a very liberal approach to how Charles Dickens became inspired to write A Christmas Carol, because if you don't know, at the time he was struggling, he didn't know what to write, he was down in the dumps, and he came out with A Christmas Carol, and it's just a very like underdog kind of story, I guess. But yeah, this is Mr. Dickens and His Carol. If you want something that's a bit like a Hallmark movie in novel form, I would recommend Christmas at the Island Hotel by Jenny Colgan. This is set on a remote Scottish island, and it's about the grand opening of the Christmas hotel that is getting ready to welcome all of its wintry, Christmassy guests, I guess. So you get behind the scenes setting the hotel up. You follow so many different characters in here, and each of them are going through something. And it's it tries very hard to be emotionally stirring, but it's also like secret prince trope, because like there's this young son from some like really badly named European country who's actually a prince in disguise working at the hotel, so that's kind of the big drama there. If you want a romance, I have The Mistletoe Motive for you. All of these books on this list I didn't really like, so if you have Christmas books like centered, I guess mostly around Christmas, I think that's the thing that doesn't work for me. I much prefer all of the like Christmas adjacent, more winter themed books. That's where I live. But The Mistletoe Motive is a romance set during the Christmas holiday in a bookstore about 2 employees who are battling it out because the bookstore is struggling. They're trying to fight for like the only position left as bookseller. I didn't really like this, but that is The Mistletoe Motive. And then the very last book on this list, it has to be The Nutcracker by E.T. Hoffman. So freaking whack. This book is a fever dream. I actually only read this for the first time, was it last year? I had never read The Nutcracker before. So weird. It's so weird, and I love it so much. It's like frightening and so strange, and I love what the romantics were doing. I love what the German romantics were doing. They were on something else. They were really on something else. But that is The Nutcracker. I would really tell you to give it a go this holiday season. So big thank you to Berga for winterifying my phone case, and I really hope you got something out of this video, because I love making this video so much. I love these books to death, to pieces. If you have a winter book recommendation for me that is not on this list, I beseech thee, let me add it to the Palace Library. Until then, stay frosty. Ciao.